Wait, what? Sapphire crystal, solid link bracelet, milled clasp, textured dial, Orient automatic movement. $100? Man, Orient's really been holding out on you guys. Hey everybody, this is Dave. Welcome back to Just the Watch, and today I'm going to be doing a review of the Orient SER2M003W0, which is a pretty amazing watch that I found here on Amazon Japan. And I've been really shocked since I've gotten back to Japan and started shopping around for watches online, because I had no idea that Orient's back catalog was so broad and that there were so many pretty incredibly spec'd watches that are available for really low prices over here. And so I'm going to be talking specifically about this one, and we'll be reviewing that, but just kind of in general a little bit about the situation over here, because I had no idea that there were so many Orient watches available. It seems like what's going on is that Orient has a lot of discontinued models that periodically come up, new old stock from different Amazon sellers, and oftentimes they are crazy cheap for the prices. These will come in onto the Amazon store, they'll be available for a couple months, they'll sell out and you won't see them, which is great for people like me who live in Japan that can jump on those deals. More difficult for people living outside of Japan. But what does seem to happen is that when those watches are on sale on Amazon, and I don't know where the other sources are, it seems like a lot of people are also listing them on eBay. Now, the eBay prices that you're going to get where you can buy them internationally are going to be more expensive, but they're still really good deals. So keep that in mind as we go through this, because again, this particular watch is currently very difficult to find, but the two-tone gold and silver version of this is right now on sale for about $100 on Amazon. Same crazy stats, sapphire crystal, solid link bracelet, milled clasp, automatic movement, all kinds of cool stuff in there. Really cool textured dial, and yeah, so to get all that for $100 is just insane. I'm not sure what the eBay prices are going. They're above that, but it's still probably a pretty good deal for the two-tone version. But again, there's a lot of watches like this out there, so I'll be showing you guys some of the other ones that I think are pretty cool that I'm kind of got my eye on, and give you guys something to kind of keep an eye on if you can surf around and do a little bit of research and figure out which ones are currently available. It's hard to keep up because again, there's so many of them out there. Now, even though this particular model is very difficult to find right now, the silver tone version, the exact one that I have, the one that I'm reviewing today, is going to be available for trade if anybody's interested. Not from me though, so I'll tell you guys about that later on at the end of the video, how you can get your hands on this one. But before that, let's go ahead and take a look at the watch and see what we got. Okay, so what we have here is clearly a dress watch. You're getting a 40mm case, 11mm height, 47mm lug to lug, and 22mm lug openings. Inside, I'm not entirely sure which movement you have. I assume it's Orient's 48743 movement, which is the same that was in the Gen 1 Bambinos. This is a non-hacking, non-hand winding movement. So if I pull the crown out, the second hand will continue to spin. Makes it a little bit difficult to set the time. And then also, when you first pick it up, if it's out of power, you cannot wind it by spinning the crown. You have to just shake it to get it started. The winding is bi-directional, it's very efficient, and you don't have to shake it for too long, and then once you get on the wrist, it works fine. But that is something to keep in mind. The movement itself seems to be performing pretty well. I'm getting about plus 9 seconds a day on my testing so far, which, isn't the end of the world. It's actually not bad for, an automatic movement. And that is a little bit of a concern with a watch like this. So this is, again, an older release. Probably, it's been discontinued and probably been sitting on a shelf for a while. New old stock from what I assume. And so one concern with that is that you might have a movement where the oils have sort of started to dry out and things like that. And so I was a little bit concerned about how it would perform, but so far seems to be working okay, and yeah, haven't had any issues with it. The watch has a sapphire crystal, which is great. I mean, that's one of the features I think is really lacking in Orient's budget line. Typically, you're not getting sapphire crystals from them or a lot of the major brands until you go over $200. So to be able to get this one at under $200 is great. Another premium feature that you're getting on this is a solid link bracelet. So the bracelet is very comfortable, very nice. You're not getting any hair pulling or anything. It's very solid feel on the wrist, and it's not the folded links that you would again typically get in the sort of sub $200 price range. Additionally, the clasp is also a milled clasp, so you're getting a really nice clasp. Again, I think this was probably retailing around $300 when it first came out, and I believe this one originally was released in 2010 from the research I was able to do. I'm not sure how long it ran for. Finishing on the watch is all polished surfaces, so it does pick up fingerprints very easily. This is fairly typical for a dress watch. The crown is also unsigned. The bracelet does mix things up a little bit. You're getting a really nice dressy 5-link bracelet with the kind of middle links there being brushed, so you get some nice alternating brushing and polishing on the bracelet. But overall, between the bracelet and the case, you're getting a very reflective, very shiny watch. So it's just a really, I don't know, I feel like it has a real festive look to it. But the dial is really the coolest part of this watch. And that was one of the things I was initially drawn to, is it reminded me a lot of the Seiko Cocktail Time with that kind of radial pattern there. This one, it is a very deeply textured dial, so that's not like I think with the Cocktail Time, it looks very deep. It's actually very shallow, almost like a pattern that's kind of somehow embossed into the dial. But this one is actually yeah, you're getting that radial texture in there. It's kind of engraved into the dial of the watch in the center. But you'll notice that when you get to the indices where the hour track is, you're getting a different engraving in there. So now you're getting a series of grooves, circular grooves going around the entire watch, kind of like grooves on a record. So it gives it a very different finish there. It kind of makes the indices stand out a bit. And then as soon as you get out of that, the radial continues at the very edge, kind of where the chapter ring is. For numerals, you're getting a 12, 6, and 9 with a framed date at 3 o'clock, and then just kind of simple, dressy indices for all the other numerals. The hands I really like. They're just a very simple Dolphin hands, but very well done, very nicely finished and polished, and a nice little kind of sloped edges there. It's just really, really cool details there on the hands. Because of the height, the watch does slide very easily under a cuff, like all dress watches should. And it's very comfortable on the wrist. Again, the bracelet is great. It feels really good on the bracelet. And I think that 22 millimeter lug width looks really good on the bracelet. I like the look of a kind of a wider bracelet on a watch like this. It makes the bracelet feel more integrated into the design of the watch. The one drawback to that is when you swap it over to other straps, I feel like leather straps look a little bit too big. I think if you're going with leather straps, it would have looked better at 20 millimeters. But this is built with the bracelet in mind, and having a bracelet of this quality, I think that's fine. I think that's okay. Okay, so let's talk about the pros and the cons of this kind of Orient Cocktail Time, for lack of a better term. First pro is the specs. Again, the bracelet is great. I mean, normally in this price range, you're getting really crappy folded link bracelets. This is a really solid, high quality bracelet, and the clasp is just as good. Having a solid milled clasp like this, really premium feature at a watch in this price range. Second major pro is the sapphire crystal. Again, one of my biggest problems with other Orient watches that I've had in the kind of the budget price range is that they usually come with a mineral crystal, and especially their dress watches. I really am nervous wearing a dress watch with a mineral crystal because I don't want to get that scratch. I don't want to have scratches on my dress watch crystals. I'd much rather have a nice clean look on that. I don't mind as much on like divers and tool watches and that sort of thing. But for a dress watch, I really want a sapphire crystal, but that's just not possible with Orient's current range of, sub $200 dress watches. So to be able to go back in their catalog and get something that was probably retailing for much higher in the past, but to be able to get one of those with a sapphire crystal now is great. I love that. Third thing is that dial. It's just such a cool textured dial. Again, it reminds me a lot of the Seiko Cocktail Time. Obviously some major differences there, but you're getting that kind of similar radial pattern. It's a little bit more ornate because you're also getting alternating finishing around the ring there, so some differences there. But it's just a really cool look to it, and I like the dial design overall. Drawbacks to it, the movement is definitely one of the main drawbacks. It's an older movement, it doesn't have hacking, it doesn't have hand winding, and if those are features that you really have to have, this is something that you're going to have to get over if you want this watch. And again, this is going to be typical of a lot of Orient's older watches. If you're going back in their catalog, a lot of their older watches have the older movements that don't have the hacking and hand winding. On top of that, I think the movement is a little bit noisy. I can hear it and feel it on the wrist sometimes, and that's minorly distracting. But other than that, it seems to be a pretty solid, well-made, robust movement that should, give you a lot of wear without it causing any troubles. And then one more con to it is, I think, the 22 millimeter lug width. This is very minor. Like, it's much better to have 22 millimeter than 21 millimeter, which Orient seems to do a lot. So I'm extremely happy that it has a 22 millimeter standard lug width, but I don't think that it looks as balanced when you swap it off of the bracelet and start putting it onto leather straps. I think it would look a lot more elegant with like a 20 millimeter strap instead of the 22. The 22 millimeter straps just look a little bit wide to me, so it's a little bit off there. And then the final minor drawback is that it does have hollow end links. Even though the bracelet links for most of the bracelet are solid, the end links are hollow. That doesn't really bother me much. I haven't given me any trouble, but that is something worth noting. But all that said, I think overall this is just a fantastic watch, especially at the price that I picked it up for. If it comes back around again, I'll try and drop a post on my page to let you guys know if I see it. But again, the two-tone version is currently available. But this is just like a really kind of festive feeling watch. It's got lots of polished surfaces, lots of reflections with that textured dial especially. It just feels like the perfect watch to wear to a wedding or to a celebration or to a party. Something that, is just a happy, fun occasion. Because of how kind of fancy and reflective it is, I think it is kind of an attention-getting watch. It's something that I typically wouldn't wear on a daily basis, and even to something, more formal occasions, it might not quite fit the atmosphere either. So that's, it's maybe a little bit limited in that respect. If that's, it's part of your personality doesn't want that kind of, sort of extra attention on your wrist on a regular basis. But if you're more drawn to that style, then this is just, I think, a great watch for you. But for me, while I had it, it became more of like a special occasion watch. Now, if you want to get your hands on this exact watch, I have just traded it over to Aviv over at My Affordable Watch Collection. So after I'm done with this review, I'm going to be packing it up and shipping it over to him. And so it should get there probably within a couple weeks. The international shipping is a little crazy right now, but definitely if you're interested in getting this watch and you haven't already subscribed to his channel, please go over and subscribe so that you can see his review when it comes out. And what he's doing is he's running a watch chain where he's trading watches around. So I actually traded this watch to him for the first watch in the chain, which was a Timex, a Q Timex, one of the original ones, the Pepsi dial ones. So I'll be getting that in, which will be fun because I had a hard time getting that one here in Japan. So I'm kind of happy. I'm late on the drive to it, but it's fun to be able to trade, a watch that I was able to get easily here in Japan for one that I couldn't. So I'm happy with that. And then Aviv's going to be taking this one and he will be reviewing it and then trading it on to anybody else. So if you have a good offer, you want to trade it something for this, make sure you go subscribe to his channel so that you can see when the review comes out and get ready to offer him something in return, and he'll ship it out to you. And then, this will kind of keep this going. I think it's kind of a fun idea that he's got there. Okay, so to close out the review, I'm going to show you 3 watches that are currently available on Amazon Japan, and the reason being that these are ones that you might be able to go and search for these model numbers on eBay and see if you can find these same watches available other places. It's probably going to be a little bit more difficult. You'll have to search around, but if they're available at these prices in Japan, there's a good chance there's somebody out there who's either doing a proxy buying service or who's relisting them on eBay, and you might be able to get your hands on them. And this is something that you can kind of do on your own too. If you go to, if you just go to amazon.co.jp, you can search around and start, kind of looking at what's there. If you just type in Orient watch like I did, you can find a lot of options there. This first one here is, I believe, called the Orient Herald. I saw a review that Random Rob did on it a little while ago, and the dial is actually really cool, and it looks way better in person than it does, in these little product pictures here. You are getting a sapphire crystal. As you can see, you're going to display case back and a solid link bracelet. So again, really high-end features, things you don't typically find in this $150 price range. So this is the one that I'm actually probably the most interested in right now. Let's jump over to this guy. This is, I think, the best value I could find right now. You're actually getting 100 meters of water resistance and a sapphire crystal and a day date. complication in there. It is two-tone, so if you're not into the two-tone thing, this might not be for everyone. But if you do like two-tone watches, this is going at $100 right now, basically under $100 if you convert that directly to USD. So really amazing value there. Kind of cool textured dial again, really elegant watch, and 100 meters of water resistance. Now, one thing to note on this that's kind of cool to see is let's see if we can zoom in a little bit. If you look right above the water resist, you see those two diamonds, that kind of little symbol there. That means that it's got a sapphire crystal. Now, Orient did this on a lot of their older watches. You don't see this on as much on modern watches, and so if you don't see the symbol, it doesn't necessarily mean that there is no sapphire crystal, but it does mean. But if you do see it, it does mean that there is one. So this is something, if you're browsing around the site and you can't read Japanese, but you look at the picture and you see that symbol, you know that it does have a sapphire crystal in it, which is, again, one of the biggest features that I like to find in these watches. All right, last one that we're going to look at here. This one's a little bit more expensive. It's right around $200, but this actually has a power reserve indicator in it. And so if you don't have a power reserve indicator, you've been interested in picking one up, this is a really affordable one to get. Again, it's two-tone. Two-tone seems to be cheaper than the solid silver colored ones. So if you don't like that, this might not be for you. But if you don't mind two-tone, you can get some really great deals. Again, you see that symbol there. So this one does have a sapphire crystal. It's also got a date wheel instead of a window, which is kind of cool. And then that textured dial. So again, pretty cool watch. All right, guys, happy hunting. But that will wrap up the review for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.